Hi everyone. In a recent video, I demonstrated how, by leveraging algorithms through expected stats, that my understanding of the difference between two different players and what I thought was the difference between their potency and their potential to score points in FPL was far more different when I factored in the algorithms. And it got me thinking, are there any other players in my squad that I've got in as a given and I haven't really compared them with other assets within their own respective teams? So, with that said, the one player that really sticks in my mind as someone who I've just bought in as a 4-4-2 by default is Gabriel Jesus. And the reality is, there are plenty of Arsenal options from an attacking point that were playing last season and also um, are brand new for this season as well. So, like, Saka is a given in terms of what he's done, his set pieces, his points. Havertz will be a new player into the mix. And then Jesus obviously got injured despite a fantastic start to the 22-23 season. But there's one player who, time and time again, I feel has been overlooked. And he's not like even among the highest. Well, he's in terms of the ownership right now among Arsenal players, he's not even in the top three right now, and that's Martin Odegaard. The reality is, 23 season, when it came to expected assists, had the highest number in the Arsenal team with 8.02, and he actually matched his expected assists with his actual assists. And when it came to expected goal involvements for Arsenal last season, Martin Odegaard once again topped the charts with 17.77. And the reality was that his overall actual goal involvements were 23, just shy of what Saka got. But because I believe in terms of got more minutes, if I'm not mistaken, if I just add up the total number of minutes played, I think Saka actually, Saka played slightly more, but despite having slightly fewer goal involvements, Arsenal's top point scorer, which caught me off guard last season, was Martin Odegaard by 10 points against Saka. So without further ado, what I'm going to do is do a comparison of Martin Odegaard against Gabriel Jesus to see, is it worth me really doing a mini overhaul with my own respective FPL team to facilitate him? I feel that last season I didn't really pay too much attention to him. I got in Martinelli quite early, got Jesus quite early, got Saliba quite early. Then I jumped on the Saka train, and then I got onto the Odegaard train, and I joined that train quite late. And some may say that like he exceeded his expected goal involvements, but then you could see that across the board for Arsenal, I think a fair few of them did. So let's get straight into it and let's not waste time on it. Well, let's do this comparison. And I'm going to use the algorithm once again. So this is available through Drafthound, and I'll put the link in the description below. So let's flip the screen. So that's, here we go, Gabriel Jesus and Martin Odegaard. And I'm just doing this fresh, straight off the bat. I've not really done like a deep dive here because I want to literally see what is the difference here between both of these players. And I think that if I want to call this a 50-50 decision for me in some respects, because, well, is it a 50-50? Not a 50-50, but like I feel that I kind of have just gone to Jesus by default because he seems like the go-to second striker in FPL right now. And as we can see with this percentage there, 32% owned in the game. So after Haaland, there isn't anyone else really people are going for. And then with Odegaard, like I've said, not even a top three owned player for Arsenal at the moment. So X-Min straight away, we can see Jesus is projected to have significantly less minutes compared to Odegaard in the opening game. And obviously Havertz being a new arrival to the team will have an impact on his minutes in some respects. And then looking at the expected points straight away, we can see there's a 0.6 difference for Odegaard, and he's obviously worth 0.5 million as well. And then if we extrapolate 0.6, 0.6 doesn't sound like a lot, but over the course of the season, that's over 22 points. So you could be potentially missing out if you don't jump on that bandwagon, if he becomes bandwagon early on. And then coming on to the next 3 game weeks, here's where we see a further increase. So 14.44 for Saka, 15.8 for Odegaard, which is a 1.4 difference. Again, multiply that across the season. That's 53 points difference. If it's consistent, obviously I'm just multiplying it, expanding it. It won't be. I doubt there'll be a 53 point difference between both of these players, but that is quite significant, and it will continue to evolve if Jesus's minutes are limited at parts of the season. And then look at the next 5 game weeks: 23.8 for Jesus and 26.0 for Odegaard. So if I just separate the difference there as well, 2.2, multiply that by the whole season, that's again, it's not going to work like that, but that could be a potential 80 plus points difference there. All because Odegaard is 0.5 million more that were being put off, and of course many will shift or have already got Martinelli instead. But I'm just showing you early on, these are small differences right now, but it can be the difference between winning and losing your mini league if you make the wrong 50-50 call. And I feel that, like, between these two players, I need to work out who is best. And I've said this time and time again, that one of my lessons learned from last season was I went kind of on gut instinct on certain 50-50 calls, and most of the times they actually backfired quite a lot. And I never really factored in expected stats. So I'm hoping with expected stats, such as what we can see on screen here, that it will influence my decision making far more than it has done in the past. And the reality is, a lot of the legendary managers and the super engaged managers also are influenced by expected stats. It's a norm in many circles, so it's perfectly fine for me to do it, and I'm happy to consider them. So let's just look at the percentages now for the next game week on different metrics. So for scoring, expected that 45% chance for Jesus versus 29% for Odegaard. So in this metric, Jesus has a very clear lead here, and this is just for the match against Nottingham Forest, of course. And then you look at the assist potential, Jesus still quite high at 25%, but then you've got Odegaard leading it with 27%, almost neck and neck there. But then look at the goal involvement here. So 59% for Jesus, 48% for Odegaard. Yellow cards, yeah, 25 versus 13. Let's not worry too much about that. And it's interesting, despite like these disparities in the first game week, it's projected still though that it will only be a 4.9 expected points for Jesus, which is quite surprising, versus 5.5% for Odegaard. And then coming on to game week 2, and we know that the opening 3 fixtures for Arsenal are relatively decent. You've got Forest at home, got Palace away, if I'm not mistaken, and also Fulham at home as well. So you'd hope that if Arsenal hit the ground running and you've got triple Arsenal, that there is some potential there for maximising points early on. So second game is 4.7 for Jesus, 5.1 for Odegaard. Let's go to game week 3, 4.8 versus 5.2. This just reminds me of what I saw with the Phil Foden and Bruno Fernandez ones, where like it just seems one-sided. And game week 1's like sub stats, obviously there was some in favour for Jesus, but then looking at it at a higher level, game week 4, the Man United fixture, 4.6 versus 5.0. Game week 5, Everton away, 4.8 versus 5.2. Tottenham at home, 4.7 versus 5.1. So look at that. That's 6 game weeks in, and it's already projecting that Odegaard is going to outscore Jesus on expected points for all of those 6 matches. Coming on to game week 7, Bournemouth away, 4.8 versus 5.2. And then coming on to game weeks 8 and 9, Man City, 4.2 versus 4.4. And then game week 9, Chelsea away, 4.5 versus 4.9. And then lastly, game week 10, Sheffield United at home at the Emirates, 5.0, 5.6. So that is really surreal. It's so one-sided once again when it comes to expected points here for these 2 assets. And the other thing I was thinking is, rather than doing a radical overhaul, is it worth me going from like Jesus to Martinelli? And obviously with that, the funds would be the same, but then I'd have to rely upon 2 4.5 strikers and basically be forced into a 4-5-1. Whereas where I was at right now, 4-4-2, I've got the luxury of having just one 4.5 midfielder, one 4.5 striker, and then a 4.0 defender. This is the dilemma that I have, that clearly the expected stats, as we can see on screen here, are literally shouting out for me to get Martin Odegaard in if I literally just went by this. And on ownership, there is a significant difference there, that Jesus is owned by far more managers. And if in that first game week Jesus hauled and Odegaard blanked, then it would be problematic for me. So I've got some different readings here. On the one hand, Jesus is clearly the template player. In a 4-4-2 formation, he makes sense. But then you've got Odegaard here, who is offering also like significant value. And I'm actually gonna like just do something off the cuff here, that if I want to get Odegaard in without radically shuffling my team, there is one other comparison that I can do, and I'm just like makes sense actually. I made I showed how Fernandez is a superior pick against Phil Foden. I'm not really in the market to get Fernandez out, but just for curiosity's sake, let's have a look to see what happens if I compare Odegaard with Fernandez. Just curious to know what actually happens there, because I want to see what the difference is. I'm not sure how much it's going to influence me in terms of the. I just want to see how one-sided it is, or what really what is the difference. I'm expecting it to be a lot closer than the one-sidedness that we've seen between Foden versus Fernandez, and also Odegaard versus Jesus. So let's say we've done our semi-finals. We're now going to do our final. This is the final decider, with the algorithms deciding who is the better pick. So it just makes it just makes sense actually, after seeing how decisive it was. So just generating it now. So here we go. Got it. I'm going to zoom in, super zoom, Fernandez and Odegaard to see what it comes up with. So this is a comparison. Once again, all of this is available from Drafthound, and I've put the link in the description below so you can have a look at yourself to see what comparisons you can generate, what expected stats work for you. So I wasn't planning to do this comparison, but because it was so one-sided for both of these players against the ones I put them up against, let's have a look. So price-wise, it's a like for like. Percentage-wise, ownership almost the same. X-mins almost the same as well. So expected points for game week 1. Odegaard 5.5 against Fernandez. So it's a bit of daylight there. Next 3 game weeks, 15.8 versus 14.9. And then if we extend it over 5 game weeks, that's 26 to Odegaard and 23.9 to Fernandez. So if I just look at the difference over the first 5 game weeks and multiply that across the whole season, again, that's giving like an 80-point difference. That's quite significant. It seems as if the algorithm is really favoring Odegaard was favouring, of course, Fernandez against Foden, but that's quite significant. So looking at the game weeks now, in terms of the opening game week. So scoring wise, almost the same. It's Fernandez who edges it, 31% versus 29. Assist potential, expected percentage, exactly the same. So fairly neck and neck here. Goal involvement, look at that, 49 v 48, almost the same there as well. Fernandez edging it. Yellow card, yeah, I mean, more likely for Fernandez as opposed to Odegaard, as we saw previously. But then, despite the higher metric slightly for Fernandez, we've seen that when it comes to the actual expected points for game week 1, Odegaard seems to be the superior pick. And it then begs the question for me that maybe I can have Jesus and I could potentially flip out Fernandez for Odegaard. So that could be a potential option here. But it's not in my thinking because then it means I have to get rid of Gabriel in defense for another 5.0 defender. And I'm just thinking I'm really happy with that defense. Like, what am I going to double with Man City? I'd prefer not to. So that would it would open a can of worms for me. Game week 2, again, it's close, but 4.7 versus 5.1 for Odegaard. Game week 3, they're neck and neck. I think it's the first time we've seen like a neck and neck for these points across the 3 comparisons that I've done. 4.2 versus 5.0 for game week 4. 4.8 versus 5.2. So I'd like to see Fernandez winning one of these. So let's have a look what happens. Game week 6, 5.0 versus 5.1. So it's quite close. It's a lot closer than Fernandez v Foden and Jesus versus Odegaard. But like Odegaard is yet to lose one of these right now. 5.0 versus 5.2. That's game week 7. And then game week 8, here we go. So game week 8, I'm just going to make sure I've got the fixtures right here. That for game week 8, Arsenal have Man City. And I'm just checking to see who Manchester United have. I know that it's got just one club written there right now. So Manchester United in game week 8 have Brentford at home. So there we go. It took Brentford at home versus Arsenal against Man City for Fernandez to win one at 4.9. So he's got one tick box and he's got a draw added here. The final two, 5.1 versus 4.9, but then 4.1 against 5.6. So the fixtures on the right, there for Arsenal, it's not showing United's fixtures there for some reason, but we can see here that it seems that the potential to score and the potential to have goal involvements are very close in game week 1 for Fernandez and Odegaard, but it seems that when it comes to actual expected points, Odegaard will edge it, and then across 10 game weeks, if this was a boxing match, like Odegaard would win by a unanimous, almost a unanimous decision, just by the sheer number of points he's expected to edge out. I think I made it out like 7. He's expected to get 2 for Fernandez. Well, not unanimous, but a very big majority, and then a draw there as well. So there you have it. The expected stats, as we saw in the previous video, were highlighting Fernandez as a viable pick over Foden. And then I compared Jesus with Odegaard, and it's favouring Odegaard. But then when I do it against Fernandez and Odegaard, it seems that it's closer, but Odegaard edges it. So, I mean, I'm not going to like have this as, I'm going to get rid of Fernandez for Odegaard. But it begs the question, can I, in a 4-5-1 or even a 3-5-2, accommodate Odegaard? I don't think it would be a 3-5-2, to be honest with you, because then I'd need like another striker. And there isn't anyone, I mean, Watkins perhaps, but then I'd be running out of cash. I'd need like a cheap striker to back it up. the only way, if I was to make this change, and I'm going to review my draft in 2 to 3 days' time anyway for my weekly update. But if I really wanted to make it work, I'd somehow need to get rid of Jesus, get a 4.5 striker in, get rid of Nakamba, get Odegaard in, but then I'd need to find a 0.5 saving somewhere, perhaps downsize Stones to a Kanji or another, another player somewhere. But I think the midfield in that instance, if I was to go in that direction, I'd have Rashford, Fernandez, Odegaard, Saka, and who is it? There's one other person, and Mitoma. So I'll repeat that again: Odegaard, Saka, Rashford, Fernandez, Mitoma would be the midfield with Haaland up top. But I just need to give it more thought here and just crunch out some more numbers. So there you have it. It seems as if Odegaard is not only a superior pick according to the expected stats than Jesus. He seems like a very viable pick when compared to Bruno Fernandes as well. And in my mind, I don't know why, I put my mind back to the start of a game week, well, the start of the season last year, where I thought, Saka was viable, Martinelli was viable, Jesus was viable, and for some reason I have Odegaard in my mind as some sort of like assist, and I really need to watch back the footage to see, where was he playing. I'll probably review the heat maps as well, and he's someone who, you can't just classify him and box him into a specific way. This guy can create a whole host of chances. He can score some fantastic goals. He can be at the right place at the right time to get assists as well. And it begs the question that, is it really worth getting him and Saka in as opposed to Saka and Jesus? So there you have it. But once again, these expected stats that you can see on screen were available through Drafthound. Put a link in the description below. Feel free to try them out for yourselves to see what results you get. And there you have it. Take care and all the best. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye.